Marcus Reid's hands were calloused from years of pushing a mop across marble floors that cost more per square foot than his monthly rent. At 6 a.m., the executive offices of Hartwell Global were silent, pristine, and completely indifferent to the man who kept them that way. He moved through the 47th floor with practiced efficiency, his dark brown skin catching the early morning light that filtered through floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan. Most people never noticed janitors. Marcus preferred it that way. Invisible meant safe. Invisible meant steady employment. Invisible meant he could provide for the two people who mattered most in this world. His daughters, Zara and Amara. The girls were 7 and 5, respectively. Zara had her mother's warm brown eyes and quick smile. Amara had inherited Simone's stubborn chin and infectious laugh. Both had their father's rich mahogany skin that seemed to glow golden in sunlight. Every morning before his 5 a.m. shift, Marcus braided their hair, intricate cornrows for Zara, 2 puffs for Amara, packed their lunches, and walked them 3 blocks to Mrs. Patterson's apartment. The elderly woman watched them until school started, a kindness Marcus repaid by fixing anything that broke in her rent-controlled building. Simone had been gone for 3 years now. A brain aneurysm, sudden and merciless. One moment she'd been laughing at the kitchen table, helping Zara with homework. The next, she'd collapsed. Gone before the ambulance arrived. Marcus had spent 6 months in a fog so thick he could barely function. It was Zara's voice that pulled him back, small and scared in the darkness of their cramped bedroom. "Daddy, are you going to leave us too?" He'd held both girls that night and made a promise. "Never. Daddy's here. Daddy's always going to be here." If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. 3 years later, Marcus had kept that promise. He worked the graveyard janitorial shift at Hartwell Global, 5 a.m. to 2 p.m., which let him pick the girls up from school. The pay was barely above minimum wage, but it came with health insurance, critical after Simone's medical bills had nearly destroyed them. He picked up weekend shifts when he could, fixing things around the building. The maintenance supervisor had discovered Marcus had skills beyond mopping floors. Former military, Army Corps of Engineers. He could fix electrical systems, patch drywall, troubleshoot HVAC units. But those skills didn't translate to a resume when you'd taken 3 years off to care for a dying wife and then raised 2 grieving daughters alone. So Marcus mopped floors and fixed toilets and remained invisible. Until the morning everything changed. He was cleaning the executive suite, CEO's office, conference rooms, private bathrooms, when he heard voices. Unusual for 6:30 a.m. Marcus instinctively moved toward the supply closet, but froze when he recognized the voice coming from the CEO's office. Victoria Hartwell. The woman who owned everything, including his job security. "I don't care what the board thinks, Richard. I will not be manipulated into making decisions based on optics." Her voice was sharp, controlled, but Marcus detected something underneath. Pain maybe. Or exhaustion. "Victoria, you're not thinking clearly." A male voice, older, paternal in that condescending way. "The shareholders are concerned. 3 years as so and you're still unmarried, no children, no. No what? No humanity? No softer side?" Victoria's laugh was bitter. "I've given this company everything. My 20s, my 30s, my health. What more do they want? They want to know you understand family values. That you can connect with. With regular people?" Her voice dropped to something dangerous. "Say it, Richard. They think I'm too cold, too disconnected. A barren ice queen in a corner office." Marcus should have moved. Should have made his presence known. But something in her voice rooted him to the spot. That particular kind of pain, he recognized it. The grief of wanting something desperately and knowing you'd never have it. "I'm not saying I agree with them," Richard continued, his tone softening slightly. "But perception matters. Your father built this company on the idea of family. Family hotels, family values, family legacy. And you can't provide a family." "Yes, I'm aware." The words were clipped, final. "This meeting is over, Richard. Tell the board I'll address their concerns at next week's meeting." Footsteps approached the door. Marcus grabbed his mop and moved quickly, heading toward the hallway. He made it just as Richard emerged, silver-haired, expensive suit, the kind of man who'd never noticed a janitor in his life. Victoria appeared in the doorway behind him. Marcus kept his eyes down, pushing the mop in steady, practiced strokes. But his peripheral vision caught details. Her dark skin flawless against a cream silk blouse, natural hair styled in elegant locks pulled back from a face that would have been beautiful if it weren't so carefully guarded. She was maybe 36, 37. Her eyes were red-rimmed like she hadn't slept. "Ms. Hartwell," Richard said, his voice carrying that particular tone men used when they thought they were being reasonable. "Just think about what I said." She didn't respond, just closed the door with controlled precision. Marcus continued mopping. But something had shifted. The invisible man had heard the powerful woman's pain. And somehow, that created a connection neither of them knew existed yet. Victoria Hartwell sat at her desk and stared at the city sprawling below. From 47 floors up, people were ants. Problems were distant. Pain was manageable. She was lying to herself, and she knew it. The doctors had been clear: endometriosis, severe and progressive. Surgery might help, might not. But even with intervention, natural conception was unlikely. IVF was an option, they'd said gently, as if that made it better. As if she had time between board meetings and quarterly reports and proving to her father's old guard that a woman could run the company he'd built. Victoria had frozen her eggs 2 years ago. A clinical procedure in a sterile facility, her assistant scheduling it between a merger negotiation and a charity gala. She'd told herself it was practical, strategic. What she hadn't admitted was how desperately she wanted what those frozen cells represented: possibility, hope, a future that included someone calling her Mama. Her father, James Hartwell, had built Hartwell Global from a single boutique hotel into a luxury empire. He'd taught Victoria everything: negotiate hard, trust no one, show no weakness. When her mother died of cancer when Victoria was 12, James hadn't cried at the funeral. Afterward, he'd told Victoria that grief was private, weakness was deadly, and the world would eat alive anyone who showed vulnerability. So Victoria had learned to be hard, to test people before trusting them, to assume everyone wanted something. It had made her a brilliant CEO. It had also made her desperately, achingly alone. The board's pressure wasn't new. What was new was her own exhaustion with the fight. She was tired of proving herself. Tired of the whispers: Ice Queen, married to her job, probably can't have kids anyway. Tired of going home to a penthouse that echoed with emptiness. Her phone buzzed. A reminder: Dr. Morrison, 3 p.m. Another fertility consultation, another conversation about declining ovarian reserve and narrowing windows.
Victoria closed her eyes and let herself imagine, just for a moment, what it would be like to have someone who loved her without an agenda. Children who thought she hung the moon. A partner who saw her, really saw her, not her title or her bank account or her last name. The fantasy hurt too much. She opened her eyes and got back to work. That night, Marcus was fixing a broken sink in the executive bathroom when he overheard Victoria on a phone call. She was in her office, door slightly ajar, voice tight with controlled emotion. "No, Daddy, I don't think it's unreasonable to expect the board to judge me on my performance. Not my personal life. Yes, I understand family values are part of the brand. No, I haven't considered stepping down." A long pause. Marcus could practically hear her jaw clenching. "I'm not a failure just because I'm not married with 2.5 children and a golden retriever. That's not what Daddy, that's not fair. Fine, I'll address it. Goodbye." The phone hit the desk with more force than necessary. Then came a sound that made Marcus's chest tighten. A woman crying, trying desperately to stay quiet. He should leave, mind his business. But his hands stilled on the wrench, and he found himself thinking about Simone. About the nights she'd cried in the bathroom, trying to hide her pain from the girls. About how desperately he'd wished someone would tell her she was enough, exactly as she was. Marcus set down his tools and knocked softly on the doorframe. Victoria's head snapped up, tears still wet on her cheeks. For a moment they just stared at each other, the janitor and the CEO, both caught in a moment of raw humanity. "I'm sorry, Ms. Hartwell," Marcus said quietly. "I didn't mean to intrude. I was just finishing the sink repair." She wiped her face quickly, professionalism slamming back into place like armor. "It's fine. You can finish tomorrow." But Marcus didn't move. Something about the devastation in her eyes, the way she sat alone in this massive office at 8 p.m., stopped him. "For what it's worth," he said carefully, "whoever made you cry isn't worth it." Victoria's expression flickered. Surprise, then something softer. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Maybe not. But I know what it sounds like when someone's trying to be strong when they're breaking inside." He met her eyes. "I've heard it in my own voice enough times." She stared at him, really looked at him, maybe for the first time, saw past the uniform and the mop and the invisible man keeping her world clean. "What's your name?" she asked. "Marcus Reid, ma'am." "How long have you worked here, Marcus?" 2 years, ma'am. 2 years. She said it like she was ashamed. "And I've never noticed you. Most people don't notice janitors. We prefer it that way." "Why?" Marcus smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Because being invisible means being safe. Can't lose what people don't know you have." Something in her expression cracked. "That's a lonely way to live," says the woman alone in her office at 8 p.m. It was bold, maybe too bold. But something about this moment felt outside normal rules. Victoria laughed, short and surprised. Then her face fell. "I should fire you for that." "Probably, but you won't." "Why not?" "Because firing me would mean admitting I'm right." They looked at each other across the space between janitor and CEO, and something passed between them. Recognition, maybe. Two people who'd built walls so high they'd forgotten what it felt like to be seen. "The sink's not going to fix itself," Victoria said finally. "No, ma'am." "Then you'd better finish it." Marcus nodded and went back to work. But something had shifted. The invisible man was visible now, and the Ice Queen had let someone see her melt. 2 weeks later, Victoria made a decision that would change everything. She'd spent those weeks watching Marcus. Not obviously, she wasn't a stalker, but she'd started noticing things. How he arrived exactly at 5 a.m. every morning, never late. How he treated everyone the same, from other janitors to executives, with quiet respect. How he picked up trash other people left, fixed things that broke, helped without being asked. And she'd started seeing the details. The way his uniform was always clean but worn, mended at the cuffs. The thermos he carried was dented but polished. His shoes were old but shined. Pride in poverty, something Victoria hadn't encountered in her world of excess. She'd pulled his employee file. Sparse information. 2 years at Hartwell Global. Perfect attendance except twice when he called in for family emergency. Former military, honorably discharged. Emergency contact. Mrs. Eloise Patterson, neighbor. No wife listed. No children mentioned, though the neighbor contact suggested family nearby. Victoria told herself she was just being thorough, getting to know her employees. She ignored the voice that whispered she was looking for reasons to keep thinking about the man who'd seen her cry and called her lonely. Her father had taught her to test people, to push them to their breaking point and see what they were made of. When she was 16, he'd cut off her credit cards without warning, given her $100, and told her to survive a month on her own. No help, no safety net. She'd worked 3 jobs, slept in a youth hostel, eaten ramen until she was sick of it. On day 30, he'd picked her up in his Mercedes and taken her to dinner at the most expensive restaurant in Boston. "You passed," he'd said, the closest he'd ever come to saying he was proud. She'd learned that tests revealed character. That pressure showed who people really were. So when the board scheduled their family values intervention for Monday morning, Victoria decided to conduct her own test. Not just of Marcus, but of herself. She needed to know, was the connection she felt real, or just loneliness making her see things that weren't there? She scheduled Marcus for a meeting. Friday afternoon, 2 p.m., her office. Her assistant, Jennifer, raised an eyebrow. "The janitor? I want to discuss building maintenance protocols." Victoria said smoothly. It was a lie. What she wanted was to see how Marcus handled power dynamics. Whether the kindness he'd shown that night was real or performance. Whether a man who'd seen her vulnerable would use it against her or protect it. Whether he was worth the risk of letting someone in. Friday came. Marcus knocked on her door at exactly 2 p.m., still in his work uniform. His dark eyes were wary but steady. "You wanted to see me, Miss Hartwell? Close the door and sit down, Marcus." He did, his tall frame folding carefully into the chair across from her desk. His hands rested on his thighs, calloused and strong. Working hands. Real hands. Victoria had rehearsed this, planned every word. But sitting across from him, seeing the quiet dignity in his posture, the intelligence in his eyes that his uniform tried to hide, her carefully constructed speech evaporated. Instead, she heard herself say words that felt cruel even as they left her mouth. "Marcus, I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to let you go. You're fired." His reaction was immediate and visceral. His entire body went rigid, breath-catching. His eyes closed for just a moment, and Victoria saw his jaw clench so hard she thought she heard teeth grinding. When he opened his eyes again, there was something devastating there. Not anger, not even a surprise, just resignation, like he'd been waiting his whole life for this shoe to drop. "May I ask why?" His voice was steady, but Victoria heard the tremor underneath. This was the moment, the test. She could end it now, tell him it wasn't real, see relief flood his face. Or she could push further, see what he was truly made of. "Performance issues," she said, and hated herself for it. "We're restructuring the janitorial department." Marcus nodded slowly. His hands gripped his thighs, knuckles lightening against his dark skin. He didn't beg, didn't rage, just sat there, absorbing the blow like he'd absorbed every other hit life had thrown at him. Finally, he spoke. His voice was quiet, stripped of everything but raw honesty. "Okay, thank you for the opportunity to work here, Ms. Hartwell." He started to stand, and Victoria felt panic flutter in her chest. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. He was supposed to fight back, show anger, reveal some flaw that would make this test worth the cruelty. But Marcus just looked at her with those deep brown eyes and said something that stopped her heart. "Please, Ms. Hartwell, I have one request." "What is it?" His voice broke, just slightly. "Don't tell my daughters. Let them think I'm still trying. Let them believe their daddy is doing his best." Victoria felt the air leave her lungs. "Your daughters," she whispered. "Zara's 7. Amara's 5. Their mama died 3 years ago." He wasn't crying, but his eyes were wet. "They've already lost so much. I need them to believe I'm still fighting for them. Even if I'm failing." Something inside Victoria shattered. Not cracked. Completely broke apart. She'd expected anger or fear or desperation. She'd gotten pure, selfless love. A man who'd just lost his livelihood and only cared about protecting his children from knowing they were in danger. Her father's test had revealed strength through survival. Marcus's response revealed something far more powerful. Strength through sacrifice. Victoria stood abruptly, her legs shaking. She walked to the window, pressing her palms against the cold glass, trying to ground herself in something solid. "It was a test," she said, her voice hollow. "You're not really fired." Silence. "Then, what?" She turned to face him. Marcus sat frozen in the chair, his expression somewhere between confused and broken. "It was a test," she repeated. "I wanted to see. I needed to know." "Know what?" His voice was flat now, emptied of emotion. "Whether I'd beg, whether I'd cry, whether I'd break. I wanted to know if you were real." The words came out raw. "If the kindness you showed me was genuine or just because I'm the CEO." Marcus stood slowly. For the first time since she'd met him, Victoria saw something hard in his face. Not anger, something worse. Disappointment. "You used my job as a test?" His voice was quiet, but each word landed like a physical blow. "My ability to feed my children, to keep a roof over their heads, to give them stability after everything they've lost. You used that as a test?" "Marcus," Do you know what this job means to me? He wasn't shouting. Somehow that made it worse. It's not just a paycheck. It's health insurance for when Amara gets asthma attacks. It's the difference between the girls eating dinner or going to bed hungry. It's me being able to look them in the eye and promise that daddy's got them, that they're safe. Victoria felt tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry. No, you're not. You're sorry I didn't react the way you wanted. You're sorry your test didn't give you the results you expected. He moved toward the door, his movements controlled but rigid. You want to know if I'm real? Here's real. I thought you were different. That night in your office, when you let me see you hurting, I thought I'd met someone who understood what it meant to be human underneath all the pretense. He paused at the door, looking back at her. His dark eyes were wells of pain and dignity mixed together. I was wrong. You're just like everyone else who's ever had power over me. The only difference is you're better at pretending to care. Marcus, please. I hope you found what you were looking for, Ms. Hartwell. The door closed with a soft click that felt like a gunshot. Victoria stood in her office, alone, successful, powerful, and completely devastated. She'd tested Marcus to see if he was worthy of her trust. Instead, she'd proven she wasn't worthy of his. She sank to her knees on the pristine floor of her corner office, pressed her palms against the carpet Marcus had cleaned that morning, and finally let herself break. Not because she'd hurt him, not because her test had failed, but because for the first time in 36 years, Victoria Hartwell had met someone who saw her as a person, not a position. Someone whose kindness was rooted in character, not calculation. And she destroyed it to prove a point her father had taught her 20 years ago. The city glittered outside her windows, 60 stories of glass and steel and isolation. Somewhere down there, Marcus was probably going home to his daughters, holding them tight, trying to forget that the woman who'd seen him cry had used his pain as a weapon. Victoria stayed on her knees until the sun set, until the cleaning crew arrived, not Marcus. He worked mornings, until her legs went numb. When she finally stood, she made a decision. Tests revealed character, and today's test revealed hers. It was time to become someone worthy of Marcus Reid's forgiveness, even if that meant tearing down every wall her father had taught her to build. Marcus walked through the door of his small apartment in Queens at 3:30 p.m., earlier than usual. The girls wouldn't be home from after-school care until 5. He had 90 minutes to pull himself together before he had to be daddy again. Strong, steady, unbreakable daddy who always had the answers. He sat on the worn couch and put his head in his hands. The apartment was clean but cramped. 2 bedrooms, the girls shared one, he took the smaller one. Simone's photos still lined the bookshelf, her smile frozen in happier times. The kitchen table was covered in the girls' artwork. Zara's precise drawings of families. Amara's wild splashes of color that she insisted were feelings paintings. Marcus's phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Patterson. Girls did good today. Zara got 100 on her spelling test. Amara shared her snack with a boy who forgot his. You're raising them right, Marcus. He smiled despite everything. Yeah, he was doing something right. But for how long? If Victoria had actually fired him, if that test had been real, how long before he couldn't pay Mrs. Patterson? Before he lost the apartment? Before Zara stopped getting 100s because they'd had to switch schools again? His phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Marcus, it's Victoria Hartwell. Please, I need to talk to you. I know I don't deserve your time, but I'm asking anyway. He stared at the message, deleted it, then retrieved it from trash. Another text. I want to explain. Not excuse. Just explain. And apologize properly. Please. Marcus typed and deleted 3 responses before settling on. I'm listening. 3 dots appeared immediately. Then, not over text. In person. Are you free tomorrow morning? I'll come to you.
That stopped him. The CEO of Hartwell Global, coming to Queens? To his neighborhood where elevators broke and hallways smelled like cooking oil and desperate hope? Saturday 9 a.m. Building buzzer is broken. 3rd floor, apartment 3C. Thank you. I'll be there. Marcus set down his phone and tried to figure out what he was doing. Anger would be easier. Cutting her off completely would be safer. But something about her face when she'd realized what she'd done, the absolute devastation, had looked too familiar. He'd seen it in the mirror after Simone died. The face of someone who just destroyed something precious and didn't know how to fix it. The door burst open. Zara and Amara exploded into the apartment, backpacks flying, voices overlapping. Daddy, guess what? I got 100 on my spelling test. And I shared my goldfish with Tommy because he was sad. Marcus stood and opened his arms. Both girls crashed into him, their small bodies warm and solid and real. He breathed in the strawberry scent of their hair products, felt Amara's sticky hands on his shirt, heard Zara's excited chatter about her teacher's praise. This was what mattered. Everything else was just noise. I'm so proud of both of you, he said, kissing the tops of their heads. My brilliant, kind, beautiful girls. Can we have pizza for dinner? Amara asked, her big brown eyes hopeful. Marcus's wallet had exactly $43 until next Friday's paycheck. Pizza would take $25 of that. Absolutely, he said. Extra cheese, just how you like it? Because some things, seeing his daughter's faces light up, were worth being broke for. Saturday morning, Victoria stood outside Marcus's building at 8:55 a.m., clutching a bag from the girls' department at Saks and fighting the urge to flee. The building was old, paint peeling, fire escape rusted. So different from her climate-controlled penthouse with its doorman and marble lobby. But as she climbed the stairs to the third floor, she noticed other things. Fresh flowers in a window box someone had installed, a handwritten sign directing residents to a community meeting, children's laughter echoing from somewhere above. People lived here. Really lived. Built community in the cracks of poverty. She found 3C and knocked. Footsteps, then the door opened. Marcus stood there in jeans and a gray t-shirt, his feet bare, looking more approachable than he ever had in his work uniform. Behind him, she caught glimpses of a small but spotless apartment. Ms. Hartwell. Please. Call me Victoria. He stepped aside. Come in. The apartment was tiny. But everywhere Victoria looked, she saw love. Children's artwork taped to walls. A bookshelf overflowing with library books. A kitchen table with a vase of daisies, cheap, cheerful, alive. The girls are at my neighbor's, Marcus said. Thought we should talk alone first. Victoria nodded, setting down her bag. I brought something for them. If that's okay. You didn't have to do that. I know. I wanted to. They stood awkwardly. Then Marcus gestured to the couch. Sit. Victoria sat. Marcus took the armchair across from her, maintaining distance. His eyes were guarded. I'm sorry, Victoria said, the words immediate and raw. What I did was cruel and unforgivable. I tested you because my father taught me that's how you find out who people really are. He used to test me, cut me off, make me struggle, see if I was strong enough. She looked down at her hands. But what I learned from him was all wrong. Tests don't reveal character. They reveal who we are when we're wielding power over someone else. And apparently, I'm someone who hurts people to protect myself from being hurt first. Marcus said nothing, just watched her. I've spent my whole life being tested, Victoria continued, her voice breaking. By my father, by the board, by every man who wanted my company more than they wanted me. I thought that's just how the world worked. You test people before you trust them. And did I pass? Marcus's voice was quiet. Victoria looked up, tears streaming. You shattered the entire test. You showed me that real strength isn't surviving alone, it's surviving for someone else. You lost your job, or thought you did, and only cared about protecting your daughters from knowing you were struggling. Her voice caught. That's a kind of love I've never experienced. Your father never. My father taught me to be strong. He didn't teach me to be human. She wiped her eyes. The board's pressuring me to step down because I'm unmarried, no children. They say I don't understand family values. And they're right, Marcus. I don't understand. Because I've never had what you have. Marcus leaned forward. What's that? Someone who loves me without agenda. Who sees me, not my title or bank account or last name. Just me. Victoria. I'm barren, she said suddenly, the word sharp and bitter. Endometriosis. The doctors say I probably can't have children naturally. I've frozen my eggs, done consultations, but the truth is I'm probably going to be alone forever. Too broken to build a family, too cold to deserve one anyway. The silence stretched. Then Marcus stood and sat beside her on the couch. Not touching, just present. You're not cold, he said quietly. You're scared. There's a difference. Victoria laughed wetly. How can you be kind to me after what I did? Because I understand what it's like to be terrified of losing everything. He looked at her. When Simone died, I had 2 little girls looking at me like I was supposed to have answers. Like Daddy could fix anything. But I couldn't fix the fact that their mama was gone. I couldn't fix my own grief. All I could do was keep showing up. How did you do it? Some days I didn't. Some days I barely functioned. But then Zara would ask me to braid her hair, or Amara would want me to read her a story, and I'd remember, they need me to be okay. So I figured out how to be okay. Victoria looked at him. You're not just okay, Marcus. You're extraordinary. I'm just a man doing his best. That's what makes you extraordinary. Their eyes met. Something shifted in the air between them. Recognition, possibility, the dangerous beginning of trust. A knock at the door shattered the moment. Daddy! A small voice called. Mrs. Patterson says we can come home now. Marcus stood quickly. That's Amara. He looked at Victoria. Do you want to? I'd love to meet them. He opened the door. 2 little girls burst in, stopping short when they saw Victoria. Zara was taller, her hair in perfect cornrows that Victoria now knew Marcus had done himself. Amara was smaller, 2 puffs bouncing as she tilted her head curiously. Girls, this is Miss Victoria. She works with Daddy. Are you a janitor too? Amara asked with 7-year-old directness. Amara, Marcus warned gently. It's okay. Victoria smiled. No, sweetheart. I work in an office. But your daddy is the one who keeps the whole building running. He's very important. Zara studied her with intelligent eyes. Are you Daddy's friend? Victoria glanced at Marcus. I'm trying to be. Okay, Zara decided. But if you're mean to our daddy, I'll know. I'm very smart. I can tell, Victoria said seriously. And you're absolutely right to protect him. I brought you something, Victoria said, retrieving her bag. If your daddy says it's okay. Marcus nodded. Victoria pulled out 2 dolls, beautiful black dolls with natural hair and warm brown skin. Amara gasped. Zara's eyes went wide. They're beautiful, Zara breathed. Can we keep them, Daddy? Amara looked up at Marcus. If Miss Victoria wants you to have them, yes. Both girls threw their arms around Victoria simultaneously. The impact nearly knocked her over, but she caught herself, wrapping her arms around these small, warm bodies that smelled like cocoa butter and innocence. Thank you, Miss Victoria, they said in unison. When they pulled back, Victoria had to wipe her eyes again. You're very welcome. If you're hooked on this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more emotional stories like this one. 2 weeks later, Victoria was working late when her phone rang. Marcus's number. Victoria? I'm sorry to bother you, but... His voice was tight with stress. What's wrong? Amara's having an asthma attack. Bad one. I'm at there, but my insurance is being weird about coverage and his voice cracked. I don't know what to do. Which hospital? Queen's General. I'm on my way. Victoria grabbed her keys and ran. 45 minutes later, she burst into the ER. She found Marcus in a waiting room, Zara asleep against his shoulder, his face gray with fear. Where's Amara? They took her back. Said they need to stabilize her breathing before they'll let me. He couldn't finish. Victoria walked to the desk. I need to see Amara Reid. Now. The nurse looked up, irritated. Then she saw Victoria's face, the kind of face that ran companies, and reconsidered. Are you family? Yes, Victoria lied smoothly. And I need to see her immediately. 5 minutes later, they were at Amara's bedside. The little girl was on oxygen, her brown skin ashy with distress, but breathing easier. When she saw Marcus, she reached out weakly. "Daddy." "I'm here, baby girl. Daddy's here." Victoria watched Marcus stroke Amara's hair, whispering reassurances. And she made a decision. She stepped into the hallway and called her personal physician. Then she called the hospital administrator, who she'd met at a charity function. Then she called her lawyer. When she returned to the room, Marcus was holding Amara's hand while she slept. Zara had woken up and was pressed against her father's side. "It's handled," Victoria said quietly. Marcus looked up. "What?" "The insurance, the bills, everything. And I've arranged for Amara to see a specialist at Columbia Presbyterian. Best pediatric pulmonologist in the city." "Victoria, I can't. This isn't charity, Marcus. This is what family does." His eyes filled. "We're not family. Aren't we?" She sat down beside him. "You've given me something I've never had. You let me see what real love looks like. Let me give something back." Zara looked up at Victoria. "Are you our family now, Miss Victoria?" Victoria's throat tightened. "Would you want me to be?" Zara thought about it seriously. Then she nodded. "Yeah. You make Daddy smile. And you brought us really pretty dolls. So you can be our family." "Out of the mouths of babes," Marcus whispered, smiling despite his tears. That night, they stayed at the hospital together. Zara fell asleep across 2 chairs. Marcus dozed in the chair beside Amara's bed. And Victoria sat by the window, watching this small, perfect family sleep, and felt something shift in her chest. Purpose. Belonging. At 3 a.m., Marcus woke to find Victoria watching them. "You should go home," he said softly. "Get some rest." "I don't want to." "Why not?" She looked at him, her walls completely down. "Because for the first time in my life, I don't want to be alone." Marcus held out his hand. Victoria took it, their fingers intertwining, his calloused and strong, hers smooth but trembling. "Then stay," he said simply. So she did. By noon, the board had called an emergency meeting. Victoria sat at the head of the conference table, facing 12 men and 2 women who controlled her company's future. Richard, the CFO who'd questioned her family values, led the charge. "Victoria, these photos are causing a PR nightmare. Who is this man? Who are these children? That's none of the board's business. It absolutely is our business when it affects stock prices and shareholder confidence." Victoria stood. "Marcus Reid is an employee of this company. A single father raising 2 daughters alone after his wife died. On Friday night, his daughter had a medical emergency. I helped because that's what decent human beings do." "By spending the night at a public hospital?" Another board member, a woman named Patricia, raised an eyebrow. "Victoria, the optics. The optics show I have a heart. Something this board seems to think is a liability." "We're not saying. You've been pressuring me for months about family values. About being relatable. About understanding what matters to regular people." Victoria's voice was steel. "Well, Marcus Reid is a regular person. He works 80 hours a week to provide for his children. He braids their hair every morning and reads them bedtime stories every night. He's more family-oriented than anyone in this room." Richard leaned forward. "What exactly is your relationship with this man?" Victoria looked him dead in the eye. "That's none of your goddamn business. But I'll tell you this, Marcus Reid has taught me more about strength, sacrifice, and what really matters in 3 weeks than my father taught me in 36 years. The room went silent. "I'm not stepping down," Victoria continued. "I'm not apologizing for caring about an employee and his family. And if this board can't accept that I'm allowed to be human while running this company, then maybe it's time for new board members." Patricia spoke up. "Victoria, that's not what we're saying." "Then what are you saying?" "We're concerned. About your judgment. About whether you're thinking clearly." "I've never thought more clearly in my life." Victoria gathered her papers. "This meeting is over. I have work to do." She walked out, leaving 12 shocked faces behind her. Her phone rang immediately. "Marcus." "Victoria, I just saw the news. I'm so sorry. I never meant to." "Don't apologize. This isn't your fault. They're going to fire you. Let them try. She smiled. Besides, I learned from an expert that real strength is fighting for the people you love, not protecting yourself. Silence. Then, Victoria? Yes. The girls want to know if you'll come to dinner tonight. Zara's making spaghetti. Well, I'm making spaghetti. But she's supervising. Victoria felt warmth flood through her. I'd love to. That evening, Victoria sat at Marcus's cramped kitchen table, eating slightly overcooked spaghetti while Zara explained her very specific sauce preferences and Amara demonstrated how her new inhaler worked. It makes a funny sound, Amara said, demonstrating. Like a tiny dragon breathing. A very fierce tiny dragon, Victoria agreed solemnly. After dinner, Zara asked Victoria to help with her hair. Daddy's good at braids. But can you do the twisty thing Miss Johnson at school has? Victoria's hands trembled as she worked coconut oil through Zara's thick, beautiful hair. She'd never done this before, this intimate mother-daughter ritual. But Zara talked her through it patiently, and slowly Victoria created something that almost looked like proper twists. You did good, Miss Victoria, Zara said, admiring herself in the mirror. Thank you for letting me try. Marcus watched from the doorway, his expression soft. When the girls were in bed, he and Victoria sat on the small couch, shoulders touching. I talked to a lawyer today, Victoria said quietly, about my options if the board forces me out. And? I could fight them. Probably win. But it would be ugly and expensive and public. She looked at him. Or I could walk away. Start something new. Something that actually matters. Victoria, you can't give up everything you've built. What have I built, Marcus? A company my father started? An empire that requires me to be cold and alone to run it. She turned to face him. Or maybe I could build something different. A life that includes spaghetti dinners and hair braiding tutorials and 2 little girls who think I'm family. We are family, Marcus said. If you want to be. I want to be. Victoria's voice broke. I want to be so badly it terrifies me. Marcus cupped her face gently, his calloused thumb wiping away her tears. Then be terrified with me. Because I'm terrified too. Terrified of caring about someone again. Terrified of my girls losing another person they love. Terrified that I'm not enough for someone like you. You're everything, Victoria whispered. He kissed her then, soft, tentative, a question more than a demand. Victoria answered by pulling him closer, pouring 3 years of loneliness and longing into the kiss. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Amara's voice floated from the bedroom. Daddy, are you kissing Miss Victoria? Marcus laughed. Go to sleep, baby girl. But are you? Yes. But she needs kisses. She's been sad. Victoria buried her face in Marcus's shoulder, laughing and crying at once. Out of the mouths of babes, Marcus murmured, holding her close. Victoria stood in the living room of their new home, not the penthouse, not the cramped queen's apartment, but something in between. A brownstone in Brooklyn with enough space for everyone and a backyard where the girls could play. She'd resigned as CEO of Hartwell Global. But she hadn't walked away empty-handed. She'd negotiated a severance package that included funding for a new venture, the Simone Reid Foundation, providing support for single parents facing medical crises. Marcus ran the foundation's community outreach. Turns out, an army engineer with a janitor's humility and a father's heart was exactly who should be connecting struggling families with resources. Miss Victoria, Daddy says you have a surprise. Amara ran in, Zara close behind. Victoria exchanged a look with Marcus. He nodded, smiling. Girls, come sit down. They settled on the couch, curious. Victoria took a breath. You know how Miss Victoria has been coming to all your school stuff and helping with homework and doing your hair? Yeah, Zara said. You're part of our family now. Well, what would you think if Miss Victoria became part of your family officially? Both girls' eyes went wide. Like, you'd be our mama? Amara whispered. Victoria's throat tightened. Not to replace your mama. She'll always be your mama. But maybe I could be your mama too? If you want. Zara looked at her seriously. Would you stay forever? even when things are hard. Forever, Victoria promised. Through every hard thing. And you'd love Daddy? Marcus. Because he needs someone to love him. I already do love him. So much. The girls looked at each other, some silent sibling communication passing between them. Then they nodded in unison and threw themselves at Victoria. Yes, you can be our mama too. Marcus wrapped his arms around all three of them, and Victoria felt something slot into place. This was what she'd been missing. Not perfection, but presence. Not power, but purpose. There's one more thing, Marcus said. He pulled a small box from his pocket, getting down on one knee in their living room surrounded by the girls' toys and yesterday's art projects. Victoria Hartwell, you tested me to see if I was real. But the real test was whether I could see past your walls to who you really are. And who you are is brave and kind and fierce and soft and absolutely perfect for our family. He opened the box. A simple ring, no massive diamond, just a beautiful band that looked like love, not wealth. Will you marry me? Will you be my partner, my love and mama to these incredible girls? Victoria was full-on ugly crying now. Yes, absolutely yes. He slipped the ring on her finger. The girls cheered. And in that moment, surrounded by the family she'd built from broken pieces and second chances, Victoria finally understood what her father had never taught her. Real strength isn't surviving alone. It's having the courage to let yourself be loved. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you love this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.